In this lesson, we are going to demonstrate how to perform Spring Boot database migration test using Flyway with test containers. Now, what is Flyway? Flyway is an open source version controlled database migration tool for managing schema changes. It supports major SQL databases, Postgres, MySQL, and others. It ensures schema consistency across development, testing, and production environments. It can create tables, insert data, and track the applied changes, making it ideal for maintaining database state during tests. So, why use Flyway in Spring Boot database migration tests? First, you can perform the test against real database. It has the capability of declarative database migration management, and it reduces manual DB setup for tests. Flyway has specific naming patterns for SQL-based migrations. The pattern looks like the following. Initially, we have a V in uppercase, then version, then double underscores, then description, at the end, .SQL, the extension. Here, this V indicates a version migration. It is always in capital. This version is generally a version number like 123 or timestamp. Then we have a separator, which is a double underscore. It separates the version from the description at the end. And this description is a human readable text using underscores instead of spaces. For example, if you see over here, V1 double underscore create underscore orders underscore table, we are using underscore here within the description, then .SQL. Similarly, V2 double underscore insert underscore initial underscore orders .SQL. Now, these are the two examples we are going to use during our demonstration. Keep in mind, Flyway applies these files, these SQL files, it executes those files based on the order that we provide in the versions. Now let's see how this works hands-on. I'm going to use this specific repository, Testcontainers with Spring Boot Postgres, which we used during one demonstration to show how Spring Boot Postgres integration tests work with test containers. So first thing, in order to use this Flyway library, we need to add one Maven dependency in our pom.xml. Let me scroll down and show you. So this is the dependency, what we can see, group ID onc.flywaydb and artifact ID flyway-core. First thing, we need to add this dependency in our pom.xml. As a next step, we need to add certain SQL files. Under resources, we have the folder DB, then migration. Whatever SQLs we had earlier in order to create the table or insert the data, that we are mentioning over here with a specific pattern to Flyway. So this is the first SQL file that is going to get executed. Here first, we are dropping the table in case it exists and then creating one. And following that, we have this insert statements. It is truncating the table first, then it is inserting two dummy records. Now, if I go to application.properties, earlier, if you remember, we were using schema.sql and data.sql so that the table is getting created and the data, dummy data gets inserted. So here, if I scroll down, you can see we have turned this spring.sql.init.mode as never. While using Flyway or Liquibase, we don't want any scripts to be executed apart from the ones we have inside Flyway or Liquibase related folders. Here I have mentioned two standard entries for Flyway related migration. One is baseline on migrate and baseline version. So overall, we have the entry in the pom.xml for the dependency, and in application properties, we have this specific entries, two related to Flyway. And here we are disabling the automatic execution of SQL files like schema.sql or data.sql. Going back to the code, now if I run this application normally without the test classes, then Flyway would create the table and insert the data. But in order to do that, first let me run the Docker compose. Now the database is up. Let me run this application. Here we can see in the log, Flyway is executing certain commands SQL command specifically so that the table creation and the data insertion takes place. Now the system is up. From the browser, if I access the application, I would be able to see that the two dummy records which we inserted over here, those would be shown. I'm inside Swagger, scrolling down, try this out, click on execute. We can see these two dummy records are shown over here. Now we are going to run one integration test for the database migration just to check whether the tables got created properly or not. If I go to IntelliJ IDEA, minimize this, I have this dedicated test class for this Flyway migration. What I am doing over here, if I scroll down inside the test method, the checks that I have specifically over here, verify schema creation. Inside that, first we are checking, we have the order table, it exists, and then we are checking whether we have certain columns present or not, like ID, status, description. And then we are also validating the record count over here. There should be 2 order records available. Let me stop the Docker Compose, going to services, right click, stop, going to Docker desktop, just removing the images and containers just to ensure that we don't have any existing Docker images, just to make sure that whatever container is getting created for integration test container takes care of that. Back to Flyway migration test, scrolling up, let me run both the tests together from here. It's pulling the Postgres 16 images, starting the Postgres container now. The test cases have started executing now. First one got passed. Now the second one is also passed. So using test container, we ran the test class just to ensure that while we are using Flyway, our migration is okay. Although there are very less number of scripts, but both schema creation and data insertion we validated. In this way, when our schema or data load related entries gets bigger and more complicated, we can perform the test using test containers in similar way just to ensure that the Flyway DB migration is working as expected.